Okay, Simin Kuf Ayin Tes, Sif Tes.
We even have
It's not
Lando on.
what?
We even got Lando tonight.
Oh yeah, wow. So, you said Tes or Ches was starting.
You did
We
test
did
by
test.
accident.
We did that. We have to start it again. We did it last night, but we have to do it again.
Okay, so it's not so Nageya. Not so Nageya. Well, the rest of it is, but then we start with Pruzbul. Halach is a Pruzbul. So that's not so Nageya enough for another 5 years, but it's Hashem. Okay, so Kuf Ayin Tes, Sif Tes. Loylam Yarcha Gadam Esatzim in Arvus. A person should distance himself from Arvus, from co-signing, not co-signing, guaranteeing loans, women a pictinus, and also from watching things for people. The choma, the efshar, as much as you can, stay away from it, which is interesting because you might. The reason is you might take a loss, so it's a risky thing to do. But Lamaisa, isn't that what chesed is? Chesed is taking that risk on behalf of others. So I don't clearly understand that. Okay, Yud. Let's say somebody has a star chayv. He has a star on a person that he's owed money, but the star is starting, the writing is starting to wear out. So Yaveh the Bezdin v'yasu lakim. So they're going to go to Bezdin, and Bezdin will rewrite him a star, or they'll give him some sort of certificate certifying the star. Let's say you have a star that was paid up. You're not allowed to leave that in your house. You shouldn't leave something that can make a mistake in your house. So if you're going to leave this star in your house, so then you might end up collecting on loan a second time, which would not be good. You'd pay. In the same way, you have to be careful that if you're watching something with somebody, you gotta make sure that it doesn't get ruined. You also have to be very careful if you're watching a mashka, meaning you lend somebody money and he gave you a watch, for example, to hold on to. You have to be very careful to watch that watch, right? Carefully. Because as if you're a paid watchman on the mashkan, and therefore you're going to be responsible. Either whether it's if it's going to get stolen, you're responsible for that. Just like somebody who's watching an item is not allowed to hand to become anybody else to watch it. So to the malva is not allowed to leave the mashkin in somebody else's hands, or the mashkin or to give the mashkin as a different mashkin to somebody else without the consent, the express consent of, it doesn't have to be written necessarily, of the original owner. Right, so there's no giving. Basically, you have to be very careful with that mashkin. Don't think just because you lent the guy money, so and he gave you a mashkin that it's really your mashkin. It's not. Yud Gimel Malvus Chaver ala mashkin. So let's say somebody lends his friend on a mashkin, right? She'im lo yiferenu lizman ploni a mashkin cholut loy. And the deal was that if he doesn't pay back by a certain amount of time, then the mashkin goes to the lender. Right? And cholut loy means it's locked in. Yeah. So then Yizar Loimer like B'Shas Avad, then make sure to tell him at the time of the loan, if you don't redeem it until Zman Ploni, let's be kind of from now. Meaning you want it to be kind of to be retroactive. Right? But it's interesting because then I mean, it's okay. It's dependent on how you look at this. How you would look at this mashkin. Is it considered like it was sold? It was given instead of the loan? Okay. Yadal. Mishu yedeh shechayev l'chaverim. Let's say somebody knows that he's chayev his friend money. And his friend tells him, Vadai, he says to him, Vadai, I know for sure, Li she'eincha yechayev li, that I know you're not chayev me. Meaning, I go over to a fellow and say, I owe you money. The guy says, I'm telling you, you don't owe me money. Right? And he insists. You don't have to pay it him, because clearly he is being moichelim. The interesting thing is, though, Shulchan Aruch says that if the guy changes his mind and says, "Oh, I found in my records that you do owe me money. You're not mechuyev to give it to him because he was already moichel." Tesvav, loy b'shabal lefroya lamava yidei shliach. Let's say the lender decides to go pay back to the borrower decides to go pay back to the lender through a third party, through a shliach. So at what point is it considered paid back? When immediately when the money is handed over to shliach, he is zaycha on this money on behalf of the malva. And when the loiva regrets it and he wants to take the money back from the shliach and then he'll pay him back later, also he's not allowed to do that. Because that is not with the das of the lender. Meaning once he gave it over to the shliach, then it's as if it's already in the lender's hands. And it's also for the shliach to give it back to the borrower. Okay, then it's kuf. Now we're up to kuf pay. So Shmitas Ksafim is basically at the end of Shemitah. Most Rishonim say it's at the end of Shemitah. Some say it's the beginning of Shemitah. Any loans that are due then get wiped clean. It's called Shmitas Ksafim, right? Which means Shemitah means to take a break. So not only does land in Eretz Yisrael take a break, so all loans take a break, which is why we sign a pruzbah, which we'll discuss. So Aleph, Haskamas Reva Paiskim, the Shemitah's Ksafim Negas Kamas Manazeh. It's the Haskama of most Paiskim that we do the Shemitah's Ksafim even the Bismanazeh, Afilu B'chutz La'aretz, even not in Eretz Yisrael. Oilam Nagu Lahakel, and people are noyek to be Mekel, Kvar Hirishu, Al Zois Gedoyle Yisrael. Gedoyle Yisrael have been already screaming about this. Zal, Uktsas Mehem Tarchu Lulam, it's Chus Al Minik Shesem Uktsas Makilin. And some of them tried to justify why people don't do Shemitah's Ksafim anymore. But if you want to be careful with mitzvahs, you have to go with the majority of the Paiskim, which is that we have Shemitah's Ksafim nowadays too. And specifically, you're allowed to, we have an easy way out, meaning it's understood why people didn't want to keep the dinam of Shemitah's Ksafim, because then they lose out all their money. And then what would happen is people would stop lending when it comes near Shemitah. So it become a disaster for the economy, which is why pruzbul was created. But once you have a pruzbul, so then everybody should just sign a pruzbul, and then you're keeping Shemitah. That's what the kids are saying. Like, what's the big deal to write a pruzbul? And then they say that nobody will come to a loss. Shnas Shemitah is a b'shnas tov reish lamed hey. Siyam yirtzeh Hashem b'shnas tov reish mem beis. That is 1882. Right, so it's a long time ago. Base Shvius Mishametis is kol malva. Shvius Shmita wipes out any loan. Bein bel malpeh, whether it's an oral loan with no shtar, bein bel shtar, whether it's a shtar of hilu yeshbach, achrayis nechasim, even if it's a shtar that says that his belongings are going to have achrayis. Umisha nasan lechaveri mois b'toras iska, and if somebody wants to give his friend money b'taras iska, meaning they're lending money with, like we call a heter iska, right? So heter iska is a financial thing. Shadin hu shechetze malve v'chetze pikodan. The din is that it's a half malve, half pikodan. Achatzi shu malve mishametes, so the half that is the loan will end up having shmita on it. V'chetzi shu pikodan ain't a mishametes, and the half that's a pikodan is not going to be mishametes. So basically, like this, when you have a heter iska, basically where heter iska is the way you want to lend money with interest. So basically, what you want to do is you want to make it as an investment. So he's going to get half the profit, and he's going to get half of the picodon of the deposit. So when you have a picodon, so that will make it that there's not going to be any shmita. So mela, half the loan shmita is going to wipe out, and half the loan shmita is not going to wipe out. Okay. Fine. If you lend your friend on a mashkin, it's not mashamet. Meaning, if you lend money to somebody, and he gives a mashkin, then it's not considered like a real loan, like we saw in the last simon, because the loan is considered a little bit paid back. So mamela, it's not considered a legit loan, and the shemitah will not wipe it out. Vim hilvo al mashkin karka, and if he lent him on the mashkin, he lent him karka. Meaning he lent him money, and he said to him, if I don't pay you back, I'm going to give you my real estate. Yesh b'zeh chilukei dinim, then it's going to make a big difference in exactly how that works, which I'm not aware of all the differences. Okay, Dalet. Orev, Shapara Lamalva, if you have an Orev, it was a guarantor, and he already paid back the loan. And a guarantor is shot that if the borrower can't pay back, so this guy takes him over. So and before the loiva pays back the arev, higia shnas hashmita, then shmita came, mishamed, then it wipes it out, and the arev, meaning the arev, became the new lender. We gotta try and keep the cheshbon here. Malva lent to the lender. The lender didn't have money to pay back, so the guarantor paid back the lender. Now the borrower owes the guarantor, so that's considered a new loan. And if Shemitah comes, he wipes it out, he wipes it clean, and he's fine. He's off the hook. Hey, Misha is chayav l'chaver shvua al mammon. Let's say somebody's chayav a shvua on mammon. Like sometimes Bezin will make somebody make a shvua, swear that you don't owe him money. Shilo yemaydaloi haisa shvius mishaves mammon. Let's say if he would have been mayded to him, that he was chayav. Meaning, let's say he admits, yeah, I owe you money. Okay, now he admits he owes him money, but now it's Shemitah. Okay, Shemitah wipes out the loan. And so he's supposed to make a shvua. So if a person's chayv to make a shvua, and if he wouldn't make the shvua and he would admit, then shvius would wipe it out. So then mishamet is gamken as a shvua. So then it's also mishamet the shvua. Right, so meaning the shvua, he doesn't have to make the shvua either. Let's say somebody's chayiv money to his friend and he denies it. And they brought him to Bezdin as chayiv, and he's chayiv. Because of what Bezdin psaked him, and Bezdin writes a psak that he has to pay him. When the sanuli de amalva, they gave it to the malva, ein hashvius mishamata. Shvius is not mishamet, because that's not a regular loan. That's a chiyuv that Bezdin gave him. So mamela chiyuv that Bezdin gave him that chiyuv. So then that's what he has to pay it back. Zayin Amavas Chaver, right? Somebody lent money to his friend. His ne'ima shalei tashmitanu shvius, and he made a t'nai that shvius is not going to work. Okay, it's a fine point here. The first point is that he lends him money and says, we're not doing the shmita thing. Afilo even so, the shvius wipes out the loan, because you can't go against the Torah. You can't make a t'nai against the Torah. It's called a masna mashakos of a Torah. You're never allowed to do that. But if he makes a t'nai, meaning it's all about how you word it. If he makes a t'nai with him, shelo yashmit hu chayiv zeh, he didn't say that there's no such thing as shmita. He said to him, our loan is not going to have any chiyuv. Even if the loan is actually done during shmita, shmita does not wipe it out. And if he writes in the shtar a lashon that it's not really a loan, but he's watching it for him, and it's also not mishamet because it's not your standard loan. Let's say you make a loan for many years. Let's say now I think we're almost in the third Shemitah cycle, I think. Third year of the Shemitah cycle, right? I think. And now you make a loan that's a 6-year loan. So the loan's not due till after Shemitah. So then Shemitah doesn't wipe it out. Shemitah is only wiping out loans that are due during Shemitah. It's not Mishamet, since he's not able to, he's not able to collect it before that. Okay, a little complicated. I hope it was semi-understandable, and everybody should have a fine night. Sorry about the delay.